Hi, this is Danny Doyle, and, thank you. And also, wow. So, I've hit 2,000 subscribers. I don't really know what to say to that. This is, while it may seem like a small number for a lot of other YouTube channels, a very big milestone for me. It's not a number I thought that I would ever hit, and, I'm very pleased to be wrong in that instance. So, thank you to everyone who watches, subscribes, likes, any of that stuff, because I am truly humbled, and I'm very happy about this. But, moving on to the meat of this video, I decided for the 2,000 subscriber special to do a Q&A. I did one for 500 subs, but that was many fewer people, and I figured I would give the new subscribers a chance to ask me, whatever you want. I will try to get to all of the questions that were posed. If I miss yours, then I'm sorry. It was not on purpose. It was an oversight because sometimes I make oopsies. So, disclaimer in advance, if I don't address your question, it's not because I secretly hate you. I'm going to start with questions from my Discord, which, if you're not there, it's linked below. We would love to have you. First question, hi Danny, where do you keep your house key? And the answer should be pretty obvious. On my keyring. That's a little ASMR, I guess, as a bonus. It's the only one you'll get, but there's Danny Keyring ASMR. I think it should be obvious that you keep your keys on your keyring, whether it's your house key, your car key, your office key. I have keys to, like, all of the dorms where I used to go to college. I probably shouldn't have them. They gave them to me because I was an RA, and they never asked for them back, and then I didn't really know what to do with them, and I thought I would get in trouble for returning them. So I just didn't, and I haven't been to campus in years. They probably don't work anymore. One of them is for a building that doesn't even exist. It was torn down because of hurricane damage. So if you want my house key, it's in between a bunch of outdated college keys for the college that I went to. Next question is, hi Danny, who's your favorite Fire Emblem unit? And I don't know. I am very bad at picking favorites. I feel like, especially when it comes to every Fire Emblem unit, it is so many to choose from, that it might be easier to say a favorite from a game, but even then, it kind of just depends on what I'm in the mood for. With that in mind, I've been doing a lot of FE6 content lately on other people's channels, and it's gotten me to once again be in my Marcus appreciation arc. FE6 Marcus is one of the coolest and, in my opinion, best designed units of all time, at least when it comes to mainline Fire Emblem. So, if I had to pick a favorite at this point in time, it would probably be FE6 Marcus, but that is subject to change based on other games that I play and my mood and any other number of factors. Next question is, why do you hate FE7 so much? And the answer comes down to the map design. I really do not like the design of any map in that game other than Dragon's Gate and arguably the final map, although I have my issues with the final map's design as well. Most of the map layouts tend to be fairly uninteresting. They have terrain and choke points, so that puts them ahead of Awakening and Birthright map design, but there's not really any that stand out beyond Dragon's Gate with its big narrow corridor, and the enemies that they give you to fight are all very low quality. I think that low quality enemy spam is one of the least interesting things you can do in an SRPG, in particular one like Fire Emblem where the enemy phase exists. As a result, the maps end up feeling rather brain-dead and one-dimensional to me, and since I don't have any special attachment to the characters, if I wanted to play a rather brain-dead Fire Emblem, I would probably play Fire Emblem 9, since that was my first Fire Emblem, and it's one that I have a lot of nostalgia for as a result. I also really like that cast for a variety of reasons. However, beyond just the brain-dead nature of the maps, I find that many of them engage in gimmicks that I simply do not find fun. Rain is the easiest go-to, as cutting your movement to make the map go even slower is just kind of like, why are you doing this? But then there's a bunch of weird arbitrary stuff, like recruiting a unit based on how many doors you open, or going to different route maps based on whether or not you raise the lords to extraordinarily high levels. And last but not least, when the game deviates from its extreme ease, it goes too far in the opposite direction, with one of the most severe and RNG-dependent difficulty spikes in gaming history, Battle Before Dawn. While I am aware that you can beat Battle Before Dawn on 0% growths with very little chance of failure on the highest difficulty, that requires a very specific setup, and one that I don't think it's reasonable to assume everyone has going into that map. As a result, it ends up being a frustrating slog through a fog of war map where movement is very important, but you can easily run into someone who stops your movement altogether. To me, the most insulting part of the map is that Nino faces 1% crit. This to me signals that it wasn't play-tested at all, because I feel like if it were, they would have just raised her luck to have her face 0 crit. It's not going to happen very often, but the fact that there's a chance for it tells me that it just was not play-tested at all whatsoever. And yeah, that's why I don't like FE7. To be clear, if you like FE7, that's perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a game that I have a perfectly normal and healthy amount of hatred for. Next question, pick one, liberal or fascist? I pick liberal. Liberals are awful, and I say that as a leftist, not as some sort of enlightened centrist, but they're not as bad as fascists. And pretending that's the case only serves to lessen the impact of the word. Also, considering that this question is from Salem, I assume it's a reference to the social deduction game Secret Hitler, in which case I'm a liberal, you can believe me. The next question is a twofer. The first one is, what is your favorite Fire Emblem game, mainline or hack, writing-wise? And the second one is, where did you hide the bodies? The answer to where I hid the bodies is obviously on my keyring. I'm not sure why people keep asking these easy and obvious questions. Regarding writing, I think I'll address both mainline and hack. For mainline, I personally feel that Thracia has the best writing in the series, and I don't think it's particularly close. That said, I do enjoy the story of a fair number of Fire Emblem games, although I think ultimately there's more of them that I dislike than like. While I ultimately feel that gameplay is more important than story in most games, I do appreciate a good story. I think it's an important part of what makes me enjoy a game, and if a game has a bad story, I enjoy it less than ones with a good story. My answer for ROM hack writing-wise is probably the predictable Vision Quest, although in my defense, I haven't played a bunch of ROM hacks that focus on story. Most of the hacks that I've played have been gameplay central. I definitely have some criticisms of Vision Quest story. Part 3 and Part 4 in particular have some significant flaws, and the cliffhanger for the planned and then cancelled sequel is disappointing, but overall, I think that Vision Quest story bats above average for Fire Emblem, and is probably better than any mainline story except for Thracia. Thracia's just very good, alright? On the other hand, Thracia's cast isn't very fleshed out, but Vision Quest's is, so I think outside of the main story, I really like Vision Quest because almost every single character is someone who I would love to spend time with, and even the ones who I wouldn't, it's really interesting to read all of their supports. It's brilliantly done, and I really recommend you check it out, if only to look through the support logs. Okay, next question is, what is your favorite Pokemon? And I have two answers for this as well, because I am incapable of picking a single favorite of anything. The first one is Tauros, and it's mostly because of how he is in competitive Gen 1 OU. I don't spend a ton of time in competitive Pokemon, but when I do, it's almost always Gen 1 OU. It's my favorite constructed metagame, and while I'm not an expert by any means, I at least know enough to pilot pre-made teams pretty well. For those who are unfamiliar with Gen 1 OU, Tauros is pretty definitively the best Pokemon in the tier, and it is solely elevated through all of the Gen 1 jank. He abuses the Hyper Beam glitch, the fact that he cannot be paralyzed by Body Slam, the fact that crits go off of your speed, the fact that Freeze is incredibly broken, the fact that Special wasn't split in half yet. Tauros just takes advantage of all of it. And I believe this to be the reason that he dropped down so phenomenally when Generation 2 rolled around and they patched out all of the jank. Tauros is the king of Gen 1, not just because he's the best Pokemon in OU, but because the things that make him good are exclusively Gen 1 mechanics, and I just find that incredibly charming. I love Gen 1, it's so jank. The second answer is from a design perspective. I am a sucker for Gourgeist and its baby evolution Pumpkaboo to a lesser extent. I'm a Halloween spooky bitch at heart, and making a pumpkin ghost out of a grass ghost type Pokemon is just adorable to me. I'm a big fan of the ghost type, and I'm a big fan of the grass type. Yes, I know grass is not a good type, but I love it, what can I say? Bulbasaur was my first love. As a result, a Halloween-flavored Pokemon that combines two types that I'm really into is right up my alley. It's not very good competitively, and it's only available in the 3D gens, so it's inherently cringe as a result, but I still really like its design. At least it looks cute in the anime. The next question is, Joe many liberals does it take to change a log by bulb? And the answer is, none! They're too busy! Their gender! The next question is, could you tell me how Sandstorm is formed and an example of where you could find any? And the answer is, no, I could not, because I don't know that. If you wanted me to tell you where it was formed, you should have phrased your question in such a way that I couldn't abuse it with a trolly answer like this. The next question is, how gamer are you? And, I mean, if you watch my content, you know that I kind of have a brand of being bad at video games, making stupid decisions all the time. I do consider myself challenge runner at heart, and I do enjoy tackling games in weird and perhaps wrong ways, and trying to add extra challenge to them, so I guess, like, pretty gamer? I don't really know how to answer that. I'm a gamer. You can clip that now and cancel me for being a gamer pilled. Next question is, what is next for the channel? And this gives me the perfect opportunity to plug my Patreon, linked below. Every month I will update my Patreon to let them know of various upcoming projects. I'm not going to say everything here because then it makes the fact that these people paid be basically meaningless, but I will give you a taste of some of the stuff I've got coming up. There is a cursed draft run of Shadows of Valentia that I'm planning on airing soon, and I have a 0% growths playthrough of Tearing Saga Champions of Utona that is currently in the process of being recorded and will be aired eventually TM. I've got a ton of other fun stuff in the works, including a new scripted series, but if you're interested in more details, you're gonna have to fork over that sweet, sweet money. But seriously, only subscribe if you can comfortably afford to do so. I don't want anyone going broke over my silly little YouTube videos. Next question. You play a lot of Fire Emblem. Have you ever tried the Fire Emblem Cipher card game? No, I have not. The only collectible card games that I've played are Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. I was actually really into Magic the Gathering for a while. I have several cards that are worth more than my mortgage payment, so I've spent an unreasonable amount of money on Magic the Gathering, and I used to travel around the country to go to Magic the Gathering tournaments, not Grand Prix, which are sort of the official tournaments, but they tended to be more fan-organized ones because the format that I play, Legacy, is using older cards, and it's no longer officially supported by Wizards of the Coast. It used to be, but because it is so prohibitively expensive, because you need to buy these expensive old cards, they no longer supported it because they didn't want to have like official events where only 80 to 100 people show up because it looks bad for the company. But thankfully, the Legacy community, and to another extent, the Vintage community, which is even older and more expensive cards, are very, very big and like really grouped together to make tournaments with like big prize pools and stuff. There's something called Eternal Weekend that happens once a year in Pittsburgh, and back when I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, me and like 3 or 4 friends would always road trip up there and just stay in Pittsburgh for the weekend just so that we could go and participate in Eternal Weekend. So we'd pay for a hotel room, pay for the entry, obviously we paid for our cards for our decks, but we like owned those as a result of that. Very fun times. That was all prior to COVID. When COVID hit, it was right after one of my friends in that group moved up to Maine, and then as a result, I didn't really want to travel, and there wasn't really anyone to carpool with and split the hotel with, so I ended up not playing anymore because there were no real in-person events. There is a thing called Magic the Gathering Online, and it's alright. I have the same deck online as the primary one I use in person, but I really enjoy the in-person. Like, I'm definitely a bit of a snob when it comes to it, but I just love the feel of the cards. I mean, the card sleeves, realistically. These are too expensive to feel the cards. But I just like the feel of the cards, just sort of the flick of putting them down. I know that wasn't anything about Cypher, but I didn't really have anything else to say because I haven't played the Cypher card game. I'm interested in it, vaguely, but I don't speak Japanese. To my knowledge, it hasn't been translated. and I think it's also discontinued. But if there's like a way to play it online or whatever, you know, I would potentially check that out. Because collectible card games are really cool. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a kid, but I never understood the rules, and I think I cheated a bunch because all of my friends cheated. We went off of the rules from the 4Kids anime, and those are not the real rules. The next question is, what has been your favorite video or series to record? In terms of series, I assume you mean Let's Plays, and if that's the case, probably one of my Zero Growths playthroughs. It's hard to pick a favorite, they're all kind of my darlings. Awakening was really fun because I enjoyed leveraging all of the broken tools that game has in order to just rush the boss over and over and over in Zero Growths. That said, it is not a series that has aged especially well. It's not up to the quality of the videos that I would upload today. I have all of my runs on the channel still so far, but I feel weird plugging the older ones because often the audio is really unbalanced. So it's a little bit embarrassing to have it up, but I do like having them there, both as like proof that I completed the challenge, and also just for posterity's sake, so I can look at them and see how far I've come. When it comes to individual videos, like one-off videos, probably either the Rosado video, the Heather video, or the Jagans versus Oifis video. Those are the three videos that not only I enjoyed making the most, but I think they're the ones that I'm proudest of. For a while, I said that the Rosado video was the best video I made. Rosado's voice actor actually joined my Discord as a result of that video, which was kind of cool. But I think I prefer the Jagans video now. I worked really hard on that. I'm actually really happy that that's the one that pushed me over the 2K threshold. It feels very fitting. It's a project that I was working on for a while, that I was passionate about, and I wanted to make sure conveyed my thoughts really well. And I think it turned out really good. I'm really proud of that one. Even if, you know, there has been some community pushback in terms of not everyone agrees with my assessment, and that's fine. I still think I did a very good job on that video, and I'm very happy about it, and I'm willing to pat myself on the back for it. So it's probably my favorite video. If we're counting live streams, however, definitely the 24-hour Pride Month charity stream. That was so much fucking fun, and it felt great to raise money for a good cause. And you bet your butt we're doing it again next year, bigger and better. Next question, what is your favorite bow in all of mainline Fire Emblem? I'm going to cheat and say the Chukonu from Tearing Saga. It's not really mainline Fire Emblem though, so if I had to pick an actual mainline Fire Emblem bow, Brave Bow, I guess. Just, it's a generically strong bow. I guess the Shining Bow from Fire Emblem Engage, although I do kind of hate how it trivializes a lot of things and makes a lot of units very samey. So yeah, probably Brave Bow from any game that has a Brave Bow. And yes, I include the various, like, it's named different, like the Master Bow in Thracia or the Crescent Bow in FE Fates. I know that they function slightly differently from the Brave Bow, but they do have the Brave effect. So I would count them in Brave Bow, but if you don't, then it's still just the generic Brave Bow. I like it. I like Brave Bow. I like attacking twice or 4 times. Next question, do you like XCOM? I have never played XCOM, but my wife has played XCOM, and she said that she had XCOM inflicted upon her, but she likes it, but she tolerates it. She has a love-hate relationship with XCOM. Mostly hate. Next question, have you ever played Disco Elysium? Yes, I played Disco Elysium when it first came out, from a glowing review from James Stephanie Sterling that really recommended it. They were a huge fan, and it sounded like the sort of thing that was right up my alley, and it was. I really enjoyed that game. I don't think there's such thing as a perfect game. I definitely have a couple of criticisms of it, but overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a really fucking good game. I haven't gone and replayed the, they made a new version that's like it's not remastered, it's like an update that adds like a bunch of voice acting that wasn't there before and changes a couple of other things. I haven't gone back and replayed that. I want to, I really want to, but my backlog is so full that I can never justify it, and part of me likes having that pure, I only played one time and I never reloaded a save unless I died. so it was sort of my canonical experience. And a couple of things happened that I didn't want to happen. Like, I messed up a dancing cue with the cop partner, who I really, really wanted to like me, and I really liked him, and I failed a roll that I had, like, advantage on. And that made my character use a racial slur against him. And then he, like, that ruined the relationship forever. And I was so tempted to go back and reload because I was like, holy shit, like, I love this character. No, but I decided to just soldier on. And he still survived, but he hated me. Because there's, like, I guess, spoilers for the end of Disco Elysium. Your decisions can impact character survival, but, my partner survived, thankfully. I was happy about that. But he did not have a good relationship with Harry, sadly. Such a good game, though. Highly recommend it if you are into... It's a very story-based game. There is some gameplay, but it's mostly dice rolls. Highly recommend it if you're into story-based experiences, though. Next question. What is your opinion on the objectively best Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon? I've never played it. It's the CDI game, I believe. I think it's funny for meme purposes. But it looks awful to play. Like, I've definitely played some bad games, and I do enjoy playing some bad games, but it doesn't look like one that I would enjoy. It looks like it hits that peak of bad, and then goes way over it. I also think that, like, one aspect of bad games is you're more willing to tolerate the ones you have nostalgia for. Like, Donkey Kong 64 is objectively a terrible game. I mean, objectively, there's no such thing as objective, but it is a pretty terrible game. There's a lot of bad design choices in it. But I still love the shit out of that game because it was my childhood, and I 101%ed it twice as an adult. Although, as a side note, can we please stop having games end at 101%? Just make it 100%. It's annoying when you add extra percentages. I've seen games that have like 105 up to 120%. Just stop. 100% means all. Just stop at 100%, please. The next question is, who is your favorite unit to use across any game? And I'm gonna once again say FE6 Marcus. It's a cop-out. I'm repeating my answer from before, but he's just a really, really well-designed unit. I love using him. I love dragging him through the mid-game as well. I think he holds up a lot better than you would think. Like, his weapon ranks in class carry him a lot of the way, even if whoever you've promoted as a paladin ends up slightly better statistically. Like, Marcus is still doing work, and I love him so much. Alternatively, if you want a different answer, since this was a different question, Milady is just an incredibly fun unit to use in FE6, so, you know, you can use her too. The next question would be, what is your favorite experience since becoming a YouTuber? And I would say it's acknowledgement from other content creators. It always really makes me blush. A couple of weeks ago, I was in, like, a stream chat of someone who I've been watching for a while, but I don't really comment. And I said something in their stream chat, and they were like, "Oh, it's Danny Doyle, like, I recognize you from, the videos. Hey, everyone, you should go watch these." And I was just, like, weird, because, you know, this person has a much higher following than me. And then a few days later, like, I was watching another content creator that I'd recently discovered, and I commented in their stream for the first time, and they were like, "Oh, I recognize you from your Fire Emblem videos." And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So it was very, I want to say humbling and flattering at the same time, to have these people who I watch and I'm, like, fans of, I'm doing fan behavior, recognize me not as their fan, but as, I guess, peer would be the word? I feel weird saying that with only 2K, but I also, I'm on the train of, subscriber count is just a number. Like, acknowledge that your art is art and it is worthy regardless of how many likes, comments, and subscribbles it gets. Although if you could like this video, it does help out. I do have to say that or the algorithm will bury me. But yeah, that, and I've had some creators, like, DM me about specific videos I've made, saying, like, hey, this video was great. And again, it's people who, not only much larger than me, but people who I really enjoy their work and, like, look up to and admire. So that always feels like it never fails to make me blush when that happens. And it makes me very happy. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right. So that's that. The next question is, do you watch anime? And despite the fact that I've referenced the 4Kids anime, I'm not an anime person. I don't watch anime. I think the only animes I've watched were, like, things when I was a little kid. My wife is trying to get me to watch Avatar, and we probably will at some point, but I also don't know if that counts. I know some people will say, like, certain things are fake anime, and I don't really know the distinctions. Like, I watched Death Note, not the live action, like the actual cartoon one, and I really liked that. But then I've been told that's a fake anime, even though it is actually made in Japan. So it feels like, I don't know what the term anime means, but most of it is stuff that I don't like. Like, I tried Bleach, I didn't care for it. I tried My Hero Academia, I didn't care for it. I think anime is just an animation style, so I don't necessarily think that I can say, like, I dislike anime in general, but I think by and large, most of the animes I've seen have been ones that I have not enjoyed, but I'm sure there are some out there that I would, because I'm not opposed to animation in general, if that makes sense. I think that saying that you dislike anime as a principle feels a little bit racist, because it is, again, just an art style, and so many different things can be anime. Like, I liked Princess Mononoke and Howl's Flying Castle, and I think those are considered anime. I might be wrong. Like, maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I'm not very familiar with anime, which might be weird as a Fire Emblem person, but it's just not something I'm knowledgeable about, and so it's possible I've not watched any anime, and all the examples I listed don't really count. But I would personally say that that's probably some gatekeeping nonsense. The next question is, have you learned anything about yourself from being a YouTuber? And I will be honest, I don't know. The reason that I say I don't know is that basically from the time that I started being a YouTuber until now, I've had a series of significant life events that have really impacted both me as a person and just where I am and how I interact with the world. You know, I got married, I moved all the way across the country. Those are positives, but then on the other end of things, I lost several very close friendships due to trans stuff, and also just generally the world fell apart. You know, COVID happened. The severity of my disability has increased pretty significantly. I was sexually assaulted an additional time, so just a lot of things have happened since I started being a YouTuber, and it is very hard to say that, like, any sort of growth or learning is a result of making Fire Emblem videos, as opposed to any of those other major things. And that's only naming a few of them. Like, I had a lot of life changes in the last 2 or 3 years. Kind of bizarre, but I like where I am at now. I'm happy with where I'm at now. I'm happy with the community that we've built around this channel. So overall, very positive. The next question is why. From context, I think that it's asking why is Akira my rival, and the answer is that they're not. We're actually friends. We've collaborated on a couple of things as well, but someone in another Discord server randomly labeled us as rivals, so sometimes we joke about the rivalry having escalated. The most recent instance of that actually is Akira's currently doing a Revelations Sabotage stream, and I actually was planning on doing a Revelations Sabotage stream for, like, medical bill fundraising stuff, and it's just weird that they fell at the same time as each other. We actually came up with the ideas independently from each other, which is why it's extra funny and like, rivalry, we're doing the same thing now. But if you haven't checked them out, you definitely should. Akira makes really good content, and I can highly recommend it. The next question is why not, and my answer is 17 elephants. The answer does not necessarily correspond to the question, but that's the answer I'm giving. The next question is favorite Pokemon tier, and I answered this earlier, but to reiterate, I love Gen 1 OU. I think it's a phenomenal tier. There's something charming about taking all of the jank from the earlier generation and turning it into this actual, really fun back and forth metagame. Don't get me wrong, there is a bunch of hacks in it. Gen 1 is probably the most hacks central metagame. And what I mean by hacks is that's sort of the term for just RNG dependent stuff. So paralysis is a big deal, and it happens from body slam more often than Thunderwave. Speed ties in the Tauros mirror is a big deal. Things like Ice Beam freezes is a big deal. So all of those are what we would refer to as hacks in the Pokemon community, the competitive community. Not that someone's hacking their game, but that like it feels like a hack because you lost to the RNG. And I understand why people are turned off by them. For me, that's just part of the game, like Gen 1, Gen fun. There's a legitimate argument for running Confuse Ray on Gengar. I personally don't. I don't think it's very good, but it is a thing that some people do, and it's not like so out there because you combine it with like Hypnosis and Thunderwave to really cripple teams with statuses. It's such a wacky metagame, and I love that it only has like 10 viable Pokemon, and of them the big 3 exist, and the big 3 are on every single team, but not all of the big 3 have the same moveset. So like you can face against a Snorlax who's using like an Amnesia Reflect set to set up and sweep you with Serve, or you can go against a more standard Snorlax who's doing like just regular body slam stuff, or you can go against a Snorlax who literally runs self-destruct in order to explode one of the most valuable Pokemon on the team just to get a hit KO, and it's just like, it's so wacky. Aggressive Snorlax is so funny. And then Chansey, on the other hand, you've got like Sing Chansey, and then you've got Special Chansey, because the special stat is both offense and defense. So Special Chansey isn't a wall, they're like actually a caster. Like they use Ice Beam to try to freeze opponents and deal damage with ice as like a very good offensive type, because it's very strong in Gen 1. I could gush about it forever, but that is my favorite Pokemon tier. Much better than any of the modern games. The next question is the best advice you've ever given, and believe it or not, that's actually confidential. I legally can't tell you, and that's not a joke. So prior to being in YouTube, and even overlapping with it for a while, my field of work was mental health, specifically, well, I mean, I worked with a lot of different groups, but at the time of doing YouTube, I was working with LGBTQ youth, AFAB youth in particular, and those with like suicidal tendencies or eating disorders or various stuff like that. And I would say that the best advice I've ever given is in that setting, but for legal reasons and also just ethical reasons, I can't get into any more details than that. If you want an example other than that, like, I don't know, I helped a friend realize that they were in an abusive relationship and get out of it at one point. I guess that counts. I don't know. Next question is, who is the hottest fictional character in your opinion? And I'll be honest, I don't really find any fictional characters hot or sexy or whatnot. Have you? It's just not a thing that appeals to me. Not to shame anyone who does. It's just never really been a thing that stood out as like an appeal of a character. In particular, when the character is pretty clearly designed to titillate. You know, like an example of Camilla, who's just, you know, a tits and ass and there to try to be hot for you. Like, it doesn't work for me. As a result, I'm gonna have to go with the meme answer here and say Boars is the hottest fictional character. Everyone rise up for Boars Gaming. Next question is Armored Mages, yay or nay? And I say yay, but with an asterisk. So I love Armor Knights, and I was very excited when I played Vision Quest and there was a Lord who's an Armored Mage. However, he was kept in check by the fact that speed thresholds in that game are actually really high, and getting doubled by enemies really sucks. His speed is absolutely abysmal, even in comparison to the other Armor Knights. He's never doubling anything, and he's getting doubled by a lot. Additionally, there are effective weapons all over the shop. Hammers, Armor Slayers, and Heavy Spears actually matter. So if mainline Fire Emblem were to have an Armored Mage, I would want them to give him weaknesses similar to that, where like there are a bunch of effective weapons and they actually matter. You know, effective weapons don't feel like they matter and engage. You know, like, oh, you hit a general with a hammer, it's 2 damage anyway. So the reason that I say this is that whenever mages are very durable, they tend to be incredibly strong and centralizing. And usually that durability comes from being a void tank. You know, you look at Arthur from Fire Emblem 4, and how he is incredibly durable because he can take a hit or two, but also he has such high avoid that he usually won't take a hit or two. You take a look at Robin from Fire Emblem Awakening. If you send her into a mage class, she doesn't have the avoid, but instead she's incredibly physically durable, and as a result, she becomes really centralizing, especially with Nosferatu. You look at the Dark Knight class from Fire Emblem Fates, and being durable and having 1-2 range is just, it's incredibly strong. Like, already strong to have inherent 1-2 range and hit on resistance, and I think that mages are usually kept in check by the fact that they are incredibly frail, and so they can't enemy phase super well. And maneuvering them to be able to do so is a rewarding way to use mages. So when they are inherently durable, as one would assume an armor mage would be, you really, really have to be careful to keep them in check so that they don't end up just being a impossible to manage unit. And I will be honest, I do not trust intelligence systems to thread that needle appropriately. So armor mages, yay, but mostly in ROM hacks. If intelligence systems does do one, I would love them to sort of follow the formula of, like, give them significant drawbacks and weaknesses. Not by lowering their move. I think that then that makes them unusable. Like, I really don't think having less move than standard infantry is the answer to any problem. It just makes units so unusably bad. I did a whole video on that, though. The next question is, what let you down this hellhole we call a Fire Emblem community? And I really like Fire Emblem. I'm really into it. I'm really enthusiastic. It's probably tied with the Soulsborne series for my favorite series of all time. I really like all of Fire Emblem. I don't remember what specifically I was drawn to in terms of, like, the actual community itself initially, but I was always really into the games from my first game, which was Path of Radiance. I will say that while the Fire Emblem community at large does have significant issues, I mean, 2 of the more popular Fire Emblem content creators are credibly accused of sexual assault, and for some reason we're just fine with that. I do think that there are portions of the Fire community that I wouldn't call a hellhole, and I'm very happy with the community that we have here on this channel, as well as some other channels that I would say are also not hellholes in terms of the community. You know, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that all of the Fire Emblem community is horrible, but there are definitely yucky underbelly parts. But that's true of almost every large enough online community. You know, that you look at the Pokemon community, and there's definitely some weirdly toxic people there. I think that there's toxic people in every community. The next question is, should we start pronouncing the P in pterodactyl? And my answer is, if you don't already, kinda lame of you, right? You know, you should be already. So start? No, we should continue. The next question is, can I be in the video? Okay, here we go. Yes, you can be in the video. This is you right here. That's you in the video. So the next question was, these questions were for a YouTube video the whole time, and the answer is no, of course not. None of these questions are going to be featured in the YouTube video. That would be kind of ridiculous. My cat is saying hi. I don't know if you can hear her meowing. The next question is, has Danny found a cool frog to hang out with yet? And the answer is, one of my cats is named Frog, so if that counts I have, but otherwise no, I have not. The next question is, how did you choose the name Danny? So Danny is actually my real first name. It's short for Daniela, and the way that I chose Daniela is that I think Daniela, along with my middle name and last name, sound really good together. I'm not going to tell you what either of those are. The way that I chose Danny Doyle for YouTube is I took my real-life first name, Daniela, I shortened it to Danny, and then I picked a last name that I felt sounded kind of snappy alongside it. So, hi, this is Danny Doyle. Like, I just like the rhythm of that. So that's how I picked that one. And my cat is on my lap again. Mercury, you can probably hear her. She's being very feisty today. Next question is, what is your favorite movie, book, TV show, and video game? And I've mentioned a couple of times I'm not huge on picking favorites, so instead I'm going to simply list a movie, a book, a TV show, and a video game that I like. So a book that I really enjoy is Ella Minnow P. It's spelled ELLAMINNOWPEA, like 3 separate words, Ella Minnow P. And the premise is that there's a bunch of people who live on an island where they worship the alphabet, like it's their god or whatever, and they have a whole sign that is the alphabet. It's just got every letter in the alphabet. But one day, one of the letters falls off the alphabet, and they decide that that is a sign from God that they're no longer allowed to use that letter. And slowly, more and more letters fall off the sign, and they are more and more not allowed to use those letters. And the entire book is written, like the whole story is written as letters from them to each other, that they write to each other, like notes to each other. And as a result, as letters fall off the alphabet sign, they are no longer used in the writing of the book. So like once Q falls off, Q never appears in the book again. Once E falls off, E never appears in the book again. And it's a really interesting practice in restrictive writing, and I think it's really cool, and the story's kind of cute as well. A show that I really like is Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It starts as a parody of romantic comedy that sort of deconstructs the genre and takes a look at the really creepy stalkerish behavior that is normalized by romantic comedy, but then as it goes on, it morphs into a very serious and well-written look at borderline personality disorder, which is a disorder that I feel like doesn't get a lot of portrayal in the media, and it's done very well. The entire show is also a comedy and a musical, and it's very good. It's the only good piece of media the CW has ever created. A video game that I really enjoy is Ghost of Tsushima. It's sort of an open-world samurai game, but it has one of the best stories that I've seen in gaming, which, you know, granted low bar, but it's really good. It starts out looking like it's just going to be a fun samurai story, but it really is a tragedy and a deep look at the deterioration of a close relationship between two people who love each other, but just are too set in different ways, and they're unable to reconcile that. It's really, really good. And in terms of movie that I really like, the Tremors series is an underrated comedy horror series. So, you know, if you want something less serious, I would recommend that. It's amazing. Next question, what things should a Fire Emblem game learn or shouldn't do from each character having a special thing, such as Naren's promotion, Christ in the Latenna event, or personal tomes and terrain skills in Tearing Saga? So this one probably needs a little bit of context. In Tearing Saga, almost every single unit has some sort of special event or special promotion. For example, Naren, the trainee, promotes into Gold Paladin, which is one of the better classes in the game. Almost every magical unit has a personal weapon, whether that is a personal staff or a personal tome. A lot of sword infantry have personal swords that have various effects, such as like the self-revival sword or cutting your damage in half. And I think if Fire Emblem were to try to replicate something like this, where every character has something that makes them unique, one of the things that Tearing Saga fails in my opinion, is there are a few characters who don't really have anything special about them. Or the thing that they do have that's special is so minimal that it doesn't really make them stand out from the other people. You know, one example would be the first Armor Knight you get. His special things, quote unquote, is that he promotes from an Armor Knight into a Great Knight. And that's it. That's his whole thing. And that really feels underwhelming in comparison to units who it's like, you get Warp as a personal staff, or you get a sword that lets you play on Phoenix mode, or that sort of stuff. So I think that they don't all need to be even. Like, there's definitely a few that are worse than others, but I think that when 90% of the cast gets something that is, like, really special and unique to them, then the other 10% who just don't get anything they really stand out and feel just not fun to use, honestly. Although I also think that Fire Emblem doesn't necessarily need to take that approach. It's cool in the way that Tearing Saga does it, but I wouldn't necessarily want it in mainline Fire Emblem. The next question, is there anything that you would like to show off that won't make it on its own as a video? For example, a scrap project or an unpublished hobby? And actually there is one thing that it was a project I spent a lot of time on, but I ended up scrapping, and that is Fire Emblem 9, but yellow units only. So I was using the direct command. I can issue direct commands to blue and yellow units, and I was only controlling people through that. So Ike was allowed to take actions on player phase, but no one else was. And there's a lot of unique things about the direct command. For example, you always want to make sure you only give units weapons you want them to equip, because they will equip, like, random-ass weapons, and it's pretty bad. Like, they'll never equip the weapon you want them to. There were a couple of chapters that had interesting clears. Chapter 8 was really difficult to figure out. I ended up having to use Ilyana, like red Ilyana, as a wall to protect Ike because she won't attack Ike. So I had her one-ranging Ike in order to protect him. And it was really cool, and I would love to be able to show that off. However, I ran into not quite like a impossible situation, but Chapter 16, The Oliver's Mansion, was so frustrating to play through over and over and over again. It just became like very RNG dependent. It turns out that when you can't like control your units on player phase, like I couldn't even control their positioning, so it really was just a sort of frustrating RNG slog, and I'm sure it's possible, but it was not enjoyable, and as a result, I ended up just scrapping the project. Next question is, what is your favorite line of dialogue in Fire Emblem? And that one's easy. Care for some milk diluted with water? So following that up is, what is your favorite line of dialogue in fiction generally? And it's not a single line, but there is a 2-line exchange in Umbrella Academy that hits so fucking hard. And it's in the first season. Luther and Pogo are talking about Luther's father, and Pogo says, you know, he did love you in his own way, and Luther said, yeah, he loved me in his own way, and that's the problem. And as a child of abuse, that hits so hard, and it's so, like, it conveys so much in just that 2-line exchange. It's really well observed, really well realized. I really like it. Because we often get this idea that, like, abuse and love are mutually exclusive, but that's not always the case, and it can be very, very complicated. Next question, what's your favorite map in any hack? And also, what's your favorite unit in any hack? By now you're familiar with my disclaimer on favorites, so I'm going to say the first one that comes to mind is Chapter 10 of Four Kings. It is an all-out timed assault on 4 different bosses in opposite corners of the map that you need to juggle with defending an entire vertical line of defense points in the center of the map. You get some assistance from green units, but they can't do it on their own, and so you need to balance offense and defense, but if you go too slowly, extremely powerful reinforcements show up and make it virtually impossible for you to kill the bosses without taking casualties. It's a really good climax to the first act of the game, and manages to have a grand scale by allowing you to deploy every unit you have, while also not feeling tedious in its grandness as other large maps tend to do, such as Clash from Fire Emblem 9. As for my favorite unit in a ROM hack, that would have to be Polyph. They are a Manakete, and they have access to 3 types of Dragon Stones. The Fire Stone gives them a huge amount of defense, the Mage Stone gives them a huge amount of res, and the Ice Stone allows them to attack at a range, but does not give them any defense or res. The gimmick of doubled or nothing is basically all of your units are going to be doubled by every single enemy. For the most part. There's a couple of things you can do to stop it, but most of your units are going to be doubled by every single enemy. And so as a result, Polyph ends up having to, like, manage what stone they have equipped on enemy phase in order to survive attacks, because they have a very low HP base and they have very low defense and res bases. Their stats are actually a little bit abysmal without considering the stone bonuses, but the stone bonuses allow them to successfully tink attacks, and they can be very potent as long as they have the correct stone equipped. And so it becomes a fun little game of not only managing what they have equipped, potentially through trading and stuff, but also killing enemies so that they're only facing physical or only facing magical. Their join situation is also really interesting because they're separated from your army, and you kind of have to manage that aspect of things as well. They're really cool overall. They're only in a few maps. I think they're only available for 3 of the maps, including endgame, but they're a really cool unit. Next question is, what are your top 3 map OSTs in Fire Emblem? This is probably going to be disappointing, but I don't really have a top Fire Emblem OSTs. I really like almost all of Fire Emblem's music, but I kind of like it all in a, like, equally good way. I don't have a lot of like musical knowledge or experience, and so I don't have like a refined musical taste. I don't even actually have any of the like song names memorized other than like You Are the Ocean's Grey Waves, but I don't even think that's the name of the song. And then Edge of Time or Edge of Dawn, I think, is the Three Houses one, but that's not even a map song. That's just like the theme songs. I don't actually remember any of the maps songs. I really like the Sohm song from Engage. It's the first one that pops to mind, but it's probably not my favorite. Like, I like the Alms March of Deliverance, but again, probably not my favorite, because I don't know, they're all great. Like, they're all great. I like all the Fire Emblem music. Next question is, how did you and your wife meet each other? We met online through a lesbian D&D Discord server that neither of us are in anymore, just because it turns out that place was kind of not great. But my wife was running a Call of Cthulhu campaign that I joined, and I ended up annoying her a bunch by giving all of my characters proficiency in piloting balloons, something that would never ever come up, and then frequently trying to suggest to the group that we do some sort of convoluted solution that would involve us piloting balloons. And then she would kill me, because it's a Call of Cthulhu campaign and your characters die frequently. And so then I would roll up a new character that would be like in some way related to the previous one, and also give them some sort of balloon-related annoyance. And it was a very fun back and forth of, like, me teasing and annoying her with balloons, and her going slightly insane, and then making my character go very strongly insane. Not slightly at all. But yeah, and then eventually I asked her out, and then eventually I moved up here, and we got married. Next question is Owain or Odin? I don't really have a preference. I don't really care for him. I know he's like over the top and memey and stuff, and that's fun. I guess Odin, because Conquest is a better game than Awakening. And also, I don't like the kid units in Awakening. They're just so fucking annoying to get, and also they're all under-leveled at join, and like, I have a hard enough time dealing with the Awakening units that aren't under-leveled at join. I don't need a fucking level 10 kid. I don't care that their stats scale up a little bit because, you know, it scales with the parent stats. They're still under-leveled, and like, they do not perform well in join, and they're really annoying, and I don't like the Awakening kids. Don't ever bring them back. I like what Conquest did better, I guess Fates in general, where like, they scale up as you go through the campaign. I think that was a cool idea, and they should have done that for Awakening. They should have backboarded it, and then they should have booted Awakening into the fucking sun. Just kidding. Just kidding about that part. I got a little too into the Awakening hate. To answer the question, I pick Odin. Okay, moving on to the YouTube questions. First question is, what is your favorite Fire Emblem 2 Iron Man and your most memorable Iron Man moment? I've talked about this a couple of times, but I'm actually not a huge fan of Iron Man's. It's not a challenge that I find particularly exciting, simply because it often just boils down to playing slowly and carefully, and taking some of the more boring options in terms of clearing maps. You know, like, for example, if I was trying to clear Village of Silence in an Iron Man safe way, there's a one-white choke point, I would just put Seth there, put a healer behind him, and just slowly route the map. And I don't think that's fun. There are definitely some Iron Mans that, like, you are encouraged to move quickly in certain maps, but I think for the most part, I prefer other forms of challenge runs. That being said, I have done a few Iron Mans, and I think one of my favorite Iron Man memories is from the co-op Iron Man I did with Stigurna of Fire Emblem 9, where she got Raisin killed in the first map that she had him available, and so she hands the save over to me, and the save was labeled something like, "Don't be mad" or "Don't make fun of me," and I was like, that's not a good sign, and I opened it, and Raisin was fucking dead. It was very funny. The next question is favorite Fire Emblem ROM hack, and that's probably still Vision Quest. I've played a lot of very good ROM hacks recently, though, so I don't even necessarily know that I have a favorite. Like, they're all very good, but if I had to pick one, you know, gun to my head, I would say Vision Quest. The next question is, any good books that you've read recently? I recently started Who Hunts the Whale by Lara K. Dale. It is about sort of like the video game industry, and it's a fictional story that takes place in like a fictional company of the video game industry, and it's sort of about the dystopic capitalist practices that this industry does. I'm only 2 chapters in, but so far it's pretty good. And I would definitely, check it out if it sounds like the sort of thing you'd be interested in. I can't give like a full recommendation or review, but I did, full disclosures, I did like back it on, I think it's called Goodreads. It's like the British version of Books Only Kickstarter. So I know some people get like weird about coercion or whatever. I don't think that that's the case, but I like to make it known when I'm backing projects or when I backed projects if I recommend them, because otherwise people get weird about that sort of stuff. The next question is, what game, if any, do you think has been most improved thanks to ROMs or hacks? Not which game has the best ones, but which one has the biggest increase in quality. I'm not entirely sure I understand what this question means. If I had to guess, I would say it's like quality of life patches that you can add to Fire Emblem games. And if that's the case, Radiant Dawn has a couple of quality of life features that I really like. One of them adds enemy range in hard mode, and another one makes it so that a bunch of random characters aren't game overs. So for example, Edward is a game over. Well, not just Edward, every playable character is a game over in chapters 1-P through 1-3. And that gets removed and makes it so that only Soth and Micaiah are game overs. Green Jill, Green Zahark, and Green Tyronio are no longer game overs. Stuff like that, just to make it slightly more Iron Man friendly. To clarify, those units do stay dead if they die, so like Green Jill suiciding is still a thing that happens, and if you're Iron Manning, you just have to do without her, but it's at least better than getting a game over. I think that's a bigger improvement than anything else. That being said, I know that GBA Fire Emblem, and in particular Sacred Stones, has added a lot of cool, for example, the healing. You can see how much you're going to heal, which is a bugbear of mine when you can't. Being able to turn on enemy ranges with Select is really good. There's a few good ones that can backport it into the GBA, but overall, I think the biggest thing is Fire Emblem 10 just removing the really archaic changes that they made, both for hard mode and for Iron Manning. The next question is my favorite Armor Knight and why, and that's probably Tyronio if generals count, because he was really, really fun to use in Fire Emblem 9 0% Growths, which was the first series I ever did on this channel. It's aged pretty poorly, the audio quality is kind of non-existent, but it's there if you want to check it out. And if generals do not count, then Boars. I had a really good experience with him in a draft where I managed to draft the entire Armor Knight triangle attack, which is not good, but it is a meme and it's fun. My favorite class in Fire Emblem is probably either Wyvern or Armor Knight, which is opposite ends of the usefulness spectrum. I like Armor Knights because they're like so dinky and stupid and silly and bad, and I like Wyverns for the opposite reasons, like they're so good and great and almost always the best class in the game, and I love that. The next question is, do you prefer Pegasus Knights or Wyvern Knights? And I think I accidentally just answered that. Wyvern Knights, I like them better than Pegs. I'm not a Pegasus hater, so I'm dodging the Tatsunami allegations. I do actually love Pegasus Knights as well, but I like Wyverns just a little bit better. The next question is, for all of the ROM hacks and fan games that I've played, which one do you think is the best and which one's not that good? I've already answered favorite in terms of Vision Quest, but in terms of ones that are not very good, I've enjoyed most of the hacks that I've played to a pretty good degree. I would say that the one that I have had the least enjoyment of is I played a hack called FE6 and FE8, where the idea was to model the entirety of FE6 in Fire Emblem 8's engine, and I played through 2 chapters of it, and I just could not continue. It really felt like skill bloat. Everybody had not only a personal skill, but 5 skills that they learned through level up, so everyone would end up with 6 skills. And I looked at what the skill lists were that units got. Well, they were classes. They're based on classes. And looking at them, it really seemed like they were just sort of like slapdash thrown together. None of the skills seemed to really make sense in terms of working together with each other or trying to like achieve any form of balance. Like, for example, Valkyrie's got both staff force and the extra staff range. So for those who don't know, staff force is gale force but for using a staff, and the extra staff range is you can staff from like extra tiles away. So they just became like the best warpers in the series. And there were some other ridiculous skill combos as well, and it just didn't look like the sort of thing I was interested in. From looking at like some information on the page as well, on the FAU page, it was like, Idune's stats have been pumped to a ridiculous degree, and the Binding Blade is no longer effective against her, but you can proc Ether in order to one-round her, and I was just like, this is not what I'm here for. It's not what I play FE for. That said, like, I can't say that it's bad, because just because I don't like the huge amount of, like, what I would call skill bloat and skills just sort of, like, slapdash thrown on there, I know that a lot of people really, really like Skill Emblem. It's just not my target. So, like, if you are into the huge amount of skills, that might be one for you to check out. Next question is, who is your favorite Laguz? And that's probably Janaf. I like him in both Fire Emblem 9 and Fire Emblem 10. He's a bad unit in Fire Emblem 9, and he's a good unit in Fire Emblem 10. But yeah, I just like him in those games, and I like his design as well. I think he's got a cool design. Next question is, in FE6 hard mode run, would you rather be forced to use Wendy or Sophia? I am assuming that forced to use means I have to field them every single map, and I have to actually, like, engage in combat with them. I can't just, like, field them and have them hang out in the corner, or in Wendy's case, like, just have her be a triangle attack bot. And even in that instance, I would prefer Wendy. I think she's a better unit. Like, you're comparing trash to each other, so I wouldn't argue too strongly if someone feels the other way around, but Wendy joins earlier, and therefore you can train her more easily. 8X and 9 in particular are sort of tailor-made to train people. Her hit rate is awful, but 8X has a lot of stationary enemies, so like you just fucking use that like to train her and heal her up when she takes damage. And then 9 is, you know, it's mostly axe enemies, so it's not really a great place to train her, so I'd train her on 8X. The payoff you get is, like, the worst general in the series, so it's not worth it. Sophia's payoff is theoretically better. You can theoretically get the largest warp range possible by training Sophia to 2020 in order to be able to use the Apocalypse boost and her capped out magic and warp. However, that not only involves getting Sophia to 2020, it also involves getting her to A-rank stabs and S-rank dark, so you can't just, like, promote her and make her a staff bot. So, realistically, I don't think that, like, better payoff is ever happening. In theory, she still has better payoff, because you can, like, raise her to 10 from 1 to 10, like, give her 9 levels and then make her a staff bot, and she's serviceable as a staff bot. Like, she can be the most mediocre fucking heal physic bot in the world. And I still don't really want to do that because you've got plenty of staff bots by that time. Like, if I'm training a unit, I'm not doing it in the fucking Arcadia and the fucking water map. Like, no thank you. Next question. What is your opinion on Maya from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn? So I'll address her as a unit first, because I think that's what it is for. On Path of Radiance, she's trash. She's like one of the worst units in the game. Probably placed number 3, third worst unit, above Rolf, and my pick for the worst unit in the game is Lucia. But in Radiant Dawn, I think she's pretty alright. I think she's overrated. I tend to think that she's sort of on the same level as, like, Boyd and Gotri. All 3 of them have problems, but all 3 of them are all pretty good. Boyd is probably the worst of those 3, but I don't think it's, like, by as much as people say. And I think Gotri's the best of those 3. Like, Mia's just sort of in the middle. Being able to do 1-2 range wind edges really helps her, but the big thing is she's just, like, got better stats at base. And sometimes that's all you need. So yeah, I think she's okay in Radiant Dawn. I wouldn't say okay, I'd say she's good in Radiant Dawn. But I do think that she's overrated by some people. As far as a character, I don't really have any opinions. I find the kind of, like, edgy, I need a rival thing annoying, but I do think it's incredibly funny that there's, like, a prophecy that her rival, the person who's gonna be, like, so strong and be her rival, is Riss, who's a sickly old man who's a fucking staff bot. I think that is the developers poking fun at how weak she is as a unit in FE9, and I love that. Also worth noting that Maya is a key part of the Foot lore, which was an important part of the charity stream that we did earlier this year, and I like that about her as well. Next question, what character would you delete from Fire Emblem and why? I actually addressed this in the previous Q&A, but the character that I would delete from Fire Emblem is Naui from Fire Emblem Awakening. I think that's her name. The Manakete who joins, who's like a 6-year-old girl wearing the most sexualized outfit out there. It's really disgusting. I think it's just downright criminal. I think that is the only correct answer. Like, that design is fucking criminal. I don't have a problem with, like, the, I'm 10,000 years old, but I look like a child. Like, it weirds me out, but I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. And if you're into that, like, not sexually, just, you know, if you enjoy that character, then that's fine. However, in this case, like, they put her in a very sexualized outfit. They're clearly know what they're doing. They're appealing to a specific audience, and I hate that shit. And I don't think it should exist. Next question, what do you think about reptiles IRL? I think they're pretty cool, but I could never have one as a pet because I have 5 cats. And that is also my answer for rats and mice. I also think they're pretty cool and never could have them as a pet. I almost got a roommate. One of my friends has like pet rats, and she almost moved in with me in my old house, but then I was like, oh, you've got pet rats. Like, I have 5 cats. That's never gonna work. And she's like, oh, well, you know, maybe I could keep them locked up in the room. And all this is too much stress for, you know. They'd be stressed because they can't eat them. And the rats would be stressed because, like, there's predators constantly outside. And if you ever left the door open, they would, like, bolt in and try to knock the cage over and eat them. And it was just, it's a recipe for disaster. I had a friend who had a pet snake, though. And that was pretty cool. I think snakes are cool. I've had some crawl on me. When I worked in a school, we took a field trip to have all the kids see, like, the reptiles and stuff, and a lot of them were too scared to let the snakes crawl on them, so I let the snakes crawl on me, and it was really cool. So that was fun. Next question. If Oscar FE9 was hanging off the edge of a cliff, and you were the only one close enough to save him, what one-liner would you say before letting him fall down yourself? And this is probably going to be a disappointing answer to the question, but I would actually save Oscar if he was dangling from a cliff. Not because I'm not the biggest Oscar hater, because I am the biggest Oscar hater, but I'm also the biggest Rolf fan, and I don't want Rolf to lose his brother. He's been through enough. The next question is, who is your favorite substitute from Fire Emblem 4? And that's Hawk. He was the carry in my Fire Emblem 4 0% growths run, and I have a lot of affection for him because of that. If you wanted me to recommend who the best substitute is, however, I would say the dancer. She has charisma. I know a lot of people like keeping the leg ring, night ring on the dancer and sending that through inheritance. I tend to think that the leg ring is better on a horse unit. And the night ring can go on the dancer, but the night ring is pretty easy to get. You just give a couple gold dumps. But in terms of my personal favorite, like, I love Hawk. Just from that 0% growths run. Yeah, it was a big deal. I love him. Next question is, who is your favorite Swordmaster or Myrmidon and why? And that would be Zahark, and that's because I think he's an incredibly fun unit in Fire Emblem 10. I think he's a pretty underrated unit in Fire Emblem 10 as well. I really like Zahark. I think he's like a top 5 unit in that game, possibly top 3. He's really incredible, and I think that people are sleeping on him. People are starting to warm up to the Zahark train, but not enough, and I really like him. Next question is, what is the weirdest thing that has ever happened to you? And it actually happened to me this past Friday. Somebody dumped a box of Cheez-Its on my car, put them on the roof, and they slid down into, like, the undercarriage of the windshield wipers area. And then it poured and rained, and they got, like, dissolved onto the car roof. And so I came out on Saturday to drive to the in-laws' house for our weekly game night, and I was like, what is that disgusting sludge on top of my car? And my wife goes, oh yeah, I meant to tell you, there was like a bunch of Cheez-Its on top of your car when I came home. And I was like, what? And yeah, apparently someone dumped a box of Cheez-Its on the roof of my car, and also down the windshield and in the wipers. And I got most of it wiped off of the roof, but I can't get into the wipers. We're gonna try washing it off with the hose, but just haven't gotten around to it yet because I've been very busy with other stuff around the house. But yeah, that's really weird, right? Like, I'm not, that's really fucking weird, right? So interesting timing for the question, because otherwise I would have said I don't know, because I haven't really had many weird things happen to me. But yeah, box of Cheez-Its on the car, very fucking weird. Next up is, what is your favorite Fire Emblem game? In the 1K special I made a little bit ago, I said that Sacred Stones was the #1 slot for me, and Fire Emblem Path of Radiance was #2, and I think that I can pretty confidently say that those two sort of like flop around for the best in my personal rankings. But honestly, like, my opinion of like what my favorite Fire Emblem game is changes so frequently, and often it's just like the one that I'm currently playing. Because I think there's a lot of cool aspects of most Fire Emblem games. Not all of them, like fuck FE7, and fuck Birthright, but most Fire Emblem games have at least some redeeming factors. And I think that's neat. Next question, who is Ira's best pairing and why is it Noish? I mean, I kind of like Ira Lex because of like the Paragon stuff. I know that's really basic, but I personally think that's probably her best pairing. What does Ira Noish give you? It just gives you the extra crit chance, right? I mean, that's pretty neat if you like flashy sword stuff. Personally, if I was going for flashy sword stuff, I would probably go Holman, just because like the extra growth there from the extra Holy Blood, and like Luna's pretty cool. But I think you can critical on individual Astro Strikes, which is not true of Luna. I might just be gaslamping people with that. Like, all of that might be a fucking lie, I don't know. But if that's the case, Noish is pretty cool. I still think Lex is best, just because Paragon, for units that are going to be struggling to, like, keep up and get enough experience, being able to Paragon through the arena is quite nice. Yeah, I think I'm going to say Lex. Lex. You can almost certainly hear my cat Alfresco, like, jumping up and purring every now and then. So the next question is, have you ever read Fire Emblem fanfics? And the answer is no. No, I have not. I don't really read fanfics at all. Actually, I haven't read any fanfics, like, ever in my life. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. Like, it's a perfectly fine form of creativity. I know some people say, like, it's cringe or whatever, but, you know, it's 2023. Like, cringe is a fake concept. But I'm not into it. Like, just because I don't enjoy it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to, though. Like, go write your fanfics and read your fanfics and do all that fun stuff. The next question is, weren't you just at 1K a week ago? And the answer is no, I was at like 1.9K about a week ago, 1.85K. I know that my 1K special was a little bit ago. I can actually look that up real quick. Give me a second. So it looks like my 1K sub special was 4 months ago, which is more recent than I expected, honestly. That's pretty exciting, like good growth. Hopefully it keeps up. But either way, I'm going to keep making videos because I'm enjoying them and people seem to be enjoying them as well. Next question, what would you recommend for an aspiring YouTuber? I think the biggest recommendation is don't do Let's Plays. You can do Let's Plays once you're established, once you have, like, you know, an audience or whatnot, and even if it's just, like, you know, 50, 100 people, like, it doesn't need to be a large audience. But there is a graveyard of unwatched Let's Plays on YouTube. You might notice the algorithm has been tweaked such that smaller channels will often show up in recommendations. I think it's one video in every recommendation is going to be a video that has, like, between 0 to 50 views, is an attempt to sort of, like, push these smaller channels. However, most of the time for me, in those instances, it's like episode 43 of a vanilla Let's Play of a game that I've never heard of. And that's just not something that I'm interested in watching. If it's a person who I don't know, and it's a game that, like, they haven't really done anything special to, then there's not really a reason for me to watch a Let's Play from someone I'm not familiar with, rather than just play the game myself. I think the best way to get established is to do the sort of long-form videos. I mean, it's not a coincidence that the videos that have given me the biggest growth are the Rosado video, the Jagans video, the Trainees video. So if you want to draw an audience, I would say definitely focus on either scripted or analytical content. I don't script my videos, but I do have a general idea of what I'm going to say, and it's sort of like looking at stuff. I would say if you can't do that, like for time constraints or whatever, and you absolutely must do some sort of Let's Play rather than a more edited and analytical video, I would say at least make sure the Let's Play does something interesting. rather than just be like, hey, I'm going to play Fire Emblem 8, this is my Fire Emblem 8 Let's Play, modify it in some way and be like, I'm going to do Fire Emblem 8, but it's a character solo run. Or I'm going to do Fire Emblem 8, but I've modified it so that everyone has 0 speed, or 0 strength, or 0 resistance, defense, insert 0 stat here, right? And I think that by that, you might draw some people in, because if they haven't heard of you, then there's no real reason for them to watch you, but if they haven't heard of you, but they look at the challenge and it looks interesting, they'd be like, ooh, that does seem interesting, maybe I'll take a look at that. My other recommendation would be make sure you get thumbnails. Thumbnails are really important. If you want people to watch your videos, you want to have a thumbnail that, like, grabs attention. It took me a while to get the hang of doing thumbnails that can grab attention, and I'm still not, like, all the way there. But I think if you want a video to get views, it is very important to have, like, look at the sort of people who, like, make content similar to yours and see if you can see what their thumbnails look like and see if you can do something similar to what they're doing. You know, make it your own. Don't just literally copy paste it. But if, for example, you know, they've got a big character face in it, put a big character face in it. If they've got outlined text, put outlined text. If there's, like, shadows, put shadows. You know, whatever audience you're trying to capture, there's someone out there who has captured it, and use them as a model. Again, don't copy their shit. Like, that's, not only you're not going to get clicks, but that's unethical. But use it as, like, a teaching tool, I guess I would say. The videos that would be most important if you're doing, like, a Let's Play are, like, episode 1. Make sure the thumbnail of episode 1 is good, because, like, you can do silly memes. I tend to do silly memes for, like, later episodes. But the first episode, you want it to convey what it is, and grab people's attention. And if you're doing any sort of, like, analytical stuff, I would say, again, like, stay away from the memes. Try to attention grab. Yeah, those would be my 2 recommendations. I'm definitely not the person you should be asking, however. I only have 2,000 subscribers. That's not a large number, and I've only been doing this for 2 years. There's still a lot that I could learn. I definitely think you're going to want to ask around. Because all I can say is, like, what's worked for me, and what hasn't worked for me. And you know, there's definitely other people who've had other experiences, so, you know, don't take that as gospel. The next question is wyverns. My answer is yes, question mark? The next question is, which unit is better? Not a quiz. Milady or Pent? And I know this was a meme joke that Eat Your Greens was making, but I'm using this as a jumping off point to say that Pent is incredibly overrated. He shows up very late, and he's just, like, yet another combat-to-combat unit. I still think you should use him. Like, when I say he's overrated, I don't say he's bad. He's overrated but good, but people act like Pent joins in the desert. Pent joins 1 chapter before Harkin, and several chapters after Hawkeye and the Big Peg. I don't remember her name, like the Money Peg. He's just like another pre-promote, and you never say no to another pre-promote, but he is at the end of the day just another pre-promote. His combat's not like better than Harkin or better than Hawkeye or whatever. Like, he's on the same pace as them. He has staff utility, but staffs are not, like, a big deal in FE7 because you don't get warp until, like, the very fucking end of the game. You appreciate it then, but, like, it's very late. Yeah, Pent good, but Pent overrated. I picked Milady. And that is the last of the questions, but of course, I can't end the video without thanking all of my Patreons for their generous support. People like you make it worthwhile, and I also want to go down and thank my pre-promote tier Patreons, Marin Karen, Jamie Collins, and Thick Molder. Thank you so much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for 2K. It's really kind of mind-blowing, but I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited for the future of the channel. And if you're excited for the future of the channel, go ahead and hit subscribe so you can keep up with all of the new stuff that I have, or click on Patreon if you're interested in getting some sneak peeks of upcoming series. Either way, it's going to be a great time, and take care, gamers.